there is a Muslim problem in the world. You just have to turn on your television set.
You guys don't have any bombs on you, do you?
This was an anti-Islam demonstration.
At one point, a guidance counselor said to my face, "We don't want your kind here. You have to leave."
And with death in their eyes and on their minds, we're going to have to do something.
A man was seen on video verbally attacking Muslim students during a prayer that was going on at a public park.
Governor Greg Abbott designated CARE as a foreign terrorist organization.
CARE is not a foreign group. There's really no evidence that they're engaged in terrorism.
People look at me differently and people treat me differently because of the background that I have.
Go back to your home country. What are you doing here? You're a terrorist and this and that.
They're trying to take over our children and convince them how wonderful ISIS is.
It's dehumanizing. It's affecting our mental health, our families, our level of security and safety.
Growing up, I learned pretty quickly that what I saw on screen wasn't for me. Or at least, it wasn't about me in any way that felt true. At first, I accepted it. But eventually, I started asking, why are we consistently framed as a threat on the news and movies everywhere?
Widely popular Fox television series 24 is making a name for itself this season, which portrays a Muslim American family as a sleeper terrorist cell.
If you learned Islam from Hollywood, you didn't learn a faith, you learned a genre. Certain words get said, images follow, and the association is made before you even understand the word on its own.
Fox producers came under fire for portraying the Araz family, and in particular all Muslims, as extremists. Hollywood's new bad guy.
A great deal of our nation gets their information and bases their opinions on what they see on television. You cannot stereotype based on the actions of a few individuals who have political agendas and to all of a sudden take that image to the family next door.
This isn't debating Islam or explaining theology. It's about a media problem, how Islamic language, especially after 9/11, gets used as shorthand for danger until the shorthand becomes common sense. Not because the definitions changed, but because the context did. And there's no better place to start than one phrase: Allahu Akbar. If you grew up Muslim, you've probably heard Allahu Akbar in normal life. Prayer, celebration, grief, everyday speech. If you didn't, there's a chance you mostly heard it through screens. And that difference matters, because screens don't just show language, they package it. Allahu Akbar is known as the Takbir. It's commonly translated as God is the greatest. For a lot of Muslims, it's a reminder that no matter what's happening, joy, fear, loss, God is greater than the moment. And Allah isn't a code word for Islam. It's simply the Arabic word for God, used by Arabic-speaking Christians and Jews as well as Muslims. So if your nervous system hears Allah and instantly thinks danger, that's not translation, that's training. In the 20th century, philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein argued that words don't carry meaning like labels stuck onto objects. Meaning comes from how words are used in real situations by real people inside a shared way of life. The meaning of a word is its use in the language. Wittgenstein calls these contexts language games. The meaning of words depends on the rules of the specific game being played, understood through language game rather than due to any inherent property of the object. This discussion can be linked to the relationship between existence and meaning. If a media system controls the game a word appears in, especially through repetition, it can quietly control what that word comes to mean. And it's not just Allahu Akbar. Take the word Jihad. Its root meaning is striving or struggle, and it can refer to moral discipline, charity, justice, self-control. A woman wearing hijab in a place that could perceive her as suspicious or oppressed is a form of struggle. But in Western media, it often gets flattened into one narrow meaning: holy war. Or the word Sharia. It's often reduced to only punishment, but at its core it refers to a broad framework of duties and ethics: worship, family matters, charity, business conduct, and personal morality. And even terrorism has no universally agreed definition in international frameworks, making it easy to politicize and misuse. So the pattern isn't Islamic words are scary. The pattern is words are made scary by where power places them and how the screen teaches us to use them.
Allahu Akbar.
This is your last chance. Where's the bomb? I'm doing Allah's work. No. You're going to kill millions of people. That's what you're doing.
Once you see it, you notice the same formula across genres. A phrase appears, the sound design darkens, the edit tightens, reaction shots tell you what to feel. And the word stops functioning as language and starts functioning as a cue. Exhibit A, Homeland. It's prestige television in the US, which gives it authority. Early on, prayer is framed less like ordinary life and more like something suspicious, something the camera watches like evidence. As the series continues, it repeatedly places its most intense action in places like Pakistan, filmed as permanent emergency where violence is the default context.
They're showing them as savages, like literal savages. Islamabad is a really pretty place, continues to grow and have new buildings that are state of the art. And along with making the people savages, they're also making the city seem like it has never grown in its life.
That's Arabic, so Keta Ramiki means like fight the American.
We got a bunch of languages in Pakistan. That wasn't any of those.
By season 3's finale, the show uses a multitude of Allahu Akbars as background sound, turning the phrase into atmosphere for horror. Exhibit B, American Sniper. Over black, the groan of tank treads drowns out the call to prayer as the entire Marine company advances over the top of us. So a sacred sound is introduced inside an invasion soundscape, not through definition, but through sequencing. This is where sociologist and cultural theorist Stuart Hall helps. Hall argues media doesn't simply show reality. It encodes a preferred meaning into the message through framing, sound, editing, subtitles. Then audiences decode it, often the way the text nudges them. Reality exists outside language, but it is constantly mediated by and through language. Even when something really happens, it still has to be turned into a story, into a message form that film and television can communicate. Events can only be signified within the oral visual forms of the televisual discourse. The event must become a story before it can become a communicative event. So when an Islamic phrase appears on screen, you're not just hearing the phrase, you're receiving it inside a message form, and that's how a phrase becomes a feeling you didn't choose.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Now, Hall tells us how meaning gets packaged. Symbolic interactionism explains why it becomes socially real. George Herbert Mead and Herbert Bloomer argue that meaning is social, built through communication using shared symbols, especially language. Bloomer boils this down to 3 premises. We act towards things based on the meanings they have for us. Those meanings come from social interaction, and those meanings are revised through interpretation. So if your main interaction with a phrase is through thrillers, procedurals, war films, and news segments that pair it with panic and violence, you're not just learning translation, you're learning a shared social meaning. And once enough people share it, it starts to feel normal, whether it's accurate or not.
3 men were reported killed today after a shootout with the FBI in a quiet neighborhood in Brooklyn.
Already, there are unconfirmed reports of a link between the victims, who are reported to be Arab-speaking, and the bombers of Bus 87.
Now, contrast that with moments where Muslim language isn't treated like a siren. This is why good representation isn't just casting a Muslim character and giving them a halo. It's whether the camera lets language live in its real ecosystem without turning it into a threat cue. In the night off, Muslim identity exists inside ordinary life, even as suspicion closes in. In Midnight Mass, Islamophobia is framed as something a community does, not something Islam is.
Maybe here's where we make a difference. Not in the big city, but in this tiny village. So I don't intimidate, I don't overshare, or overstep, or intrude in any way. I don't even carry a gun. And still, Beverly Keane, and a few others too, look at me like I'm Osama bin fucking Laden.
And in Mr. Robot, Muslimness isn't treated like a headline. It's part of character reality.
Why did you bail on me at the theater?
You talk about yourself a lot. And you're not allowed to wear shoes here.
These aren't perfect, but they loosen the chokehold. Language stops being a cue and becomes lived again. So, what's the alternative? Not be nicer, not add diversity for the sake of it. A different kind of cinema altogether. Third cinema. Named and theorized by Argentine filmmakers Fernando Solanas and Octavio Getino, was proposed as a challenge to mainstream cinema. In their framework, first cinema is Hollywood. Spectacle, profit, passive spectatorship. Second cinema is auteur cinema. More personal, but still centered on the filmmaker as individual. Third cinema is collective and anti-imperialist. Made as political practice, meant to reach people, build consciousness, and refuse the common sense the system sells as neutral. That's why I'm using it as counter-dictionary. It rebuilds meaning through proximity, lived context, history, community voice. A brutal but focused example is Mustafa Abu Ali's 1974 Palestinian documentary, They Do Not Exist. What's powerful is that it doesn't chase impressive plot points. It starts with ordinary life and then shows how that ordinary life is erased. By documenting the non-event and its disappearance, it exposes the scale of the tragedy.
أثبتت وقائع التاريخ أن الإمبريالية لا تتردد عن ارتكاب أي جريمة للحفاظ على مصالحها. أن الغارات البربرية التي قام بها سلاح الطيران الصهيوني تدل بشكل قاطع على العقلية الفاشية لحكام إسرائيل، وأن صفة الخديعة هي التي تغلب على كل أفعالهم. لكن حكام إسرائيل يريدون تعميق الهوة بين العرب واليهود حتى لا يكون هناك مجال للتعايش السلمي. إن من يتصور أن القتل والتنكيل بشعبنا.
When cinema stops hunting for threat, language can return to life. Words stop being cues and start being human again. Yes, Muslim and Arabic creators matter, but the burden can't only be on targeted communities to translate themselves back into humanity.
1.6 billion people in every corner of the world, a quarter of humanity, of all backgrounds, cultures, ethnicities, and yet the opposition tonight wants to generalize, stereotype, smear in order to desperately win this debate.
This is a global literacy problem. We need audiences trained not just to watch images, but to hear context. And we need alternative cinema funded, distributed, and taken seriously. Because if media can teach people to fear a phrase, it can also teach people to think. The most dangerous propaganda isn't the lie you hear once. It's the words and phrases you stop questioning.
Muslims come from different backgrounds. They're from different geographical locations, speak different languages.
We are hardworking members of society, but we're treated differently just because of our faith.
They see the way we look, they see the way we dress, and they often want an apology.
Bin Laden in a suit and tie and a smile, I remember what somebody once attacked me as.
And we just have to get to know each other and not use images that will separate us as if we're not here, all part of the same society.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.